Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Networking with Nathaniel. This is episode 24, part two. I didn't learn my lesson very well of hitting the record button, and so Noah Wasserman was gracious enough to uh, pause mid-sentence, and we're re-recording. So I have the pleasure of being here with Noah. He's been in sub two for about a month now. He's married, has a kid that's going a little boy. He's going to be turning two, I think, on the day this episode airs. So that's pretty exciting for you. He's got a background in construction, managing multiple projects in multiple cities at any given time. And he's doing some pretty exciting stuff in email marketing and cold text marketing. And he's doing some things that I don't even understand. So we'll see how far we get into that conversation. We're going to start off talking about your background in construction, but before we do, I appreciate you being here, man. How are you doing?
Thank God, Nathaniel. It's really awesome to be brought on here. So I want to thank you for that opportunity. And just to give a little background, I'm very new into sub two. And I was telling Amar, the guy who took my call when I was coming to join the mentorship, or I should say the community. And we were talking, and I told him it's like I want to be in a good community where there's good people who I could share things with and have good value, and together we will all win, instead of doing some sort of marketplace where you're hiding things and afraid that somebody's going to take all of your skills and your secrets, etc. And so, I really joined Sub 2 for the people. And over the past month, I've been trying to meet as many as I can, and I've been very blown away with everybody. So thank you for letting me be part of that. Um, but yeah, so thank you, Nathaniel, for
Yeah,
for
you're
this
you're welcome. I
platform.
appreciate you being here, man. This is what sub two is kind of all about is, the community aspect and collaboration over competition. Like you said, you're not trying to hide secrets because there's not secrets here. We can all succeed and we can all prosper together. I actually joined because I wanted to get better on the phone, honing my sales skills, and then I wanted to learn about the creative finance aspect. And people join Sub 2 for all sorts of different reasons, but it does seems like we stick around because of people like you that are doing new and exciting things and are willing to share and give back, and because you just want to do newer and exciting things with other people and have friends and stuff and do cool, say, do dope shit, like Marlon Johnson would say. But yeah, I totally agree. We have an amazing community, and for the most part, there's always outliers, especially when you have, I think we have over 12,000 at this point. There's going to be people that are just here trying to sell a product or take advantage of other people that are unknowing, but 99 probably percent of the people here are just trying to succeed and trying to grow and learn and do better for themselves, their family, and their communities. So, um, enough about that. I'll get off my little soapbox about it. But I wanted to talk to you about your construction background, because you mentioned that you had multiple projects going at any given time. You had them in multiple cities. You started rattling off the states that you were operating in. And my wife and I, we're doing about one at a time at this point, and that has its own challenges. So I can imagine when you're doing 18, there's a lot of different challenges. So how did you even get started in this?
Yeah, so it's very funny. It wasn't like some romantic way, or that I had a big background in construction or even liked it at all. Really, what it was is I was coming out of yeah, we call it a yeshiva, but what it is, it's a religious school. So after high school, instead of going to college, I went to a Jewish school where all we learned was Jewish studies from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day.
Wow.
And so after 3 years of that, I decided I think I've got a lot of education here, and now I want to go into the world. And so it's like, okay, but I want to do this with a soulmate. So that's when I was like, I want to get married, find a wife, and then we'll build a family together and a foundation to do good things in the world. And so I ended up meeting my wife, and when we met, then it was time to, get married. And it's like, okay, so well, now we actually have to, do things for a living, and we have to afford, to live and, pay for an apartment and a car and all this stuff. So I go, okay, what am I supposed to do? So we get married, and originally I thought, why don't I teach at the school that I was learning in? And they'd given us a position there. And so this was in the Poconos. It's a mountain town, like in Pennsylvania, is where
Yeah.
this was. And so when we got married, my wife said, I don't think I really want to live in this remote location. Let's go do something else. So then I go, well, there goes my job, like
Yeah.
so this is how I get into the construction. So my brother, he moves to Florida from Chicago. He had moved to Boca Raton, and he said, I'm gonna go flip a property with his brother-in-law, which is my brother's brother-in-law. His name
Okay.
is Andrew, and my brother's name is Seth. So Seth and Andrew, they go, we're going to raise, I don't know, maybe they got $80,000 from somebody. And they said, we're going to go to the auction and learn how to buy auction properties. So they bought a condo and they flipped this first condo. And, it didn't go bad, but it like any first flip, you get screwed.
Mm.
And so anyways, they finish it and they raise more money. And at this time, they say, "Hey, why don't you come to Florida, come visit us, etc." So me and my wife were newly married. We've been married 3 weeks. We go to Florida, and I get there and I go, "So now what am I going to do for work?" And they pull me aside and they say, "You know what? You don't have a job. Why don't you come manage this new house we just got? You'll be like the contractor guy." And I said, "I don't know this. Like, I don't know how to do this at all." They
Yeah.
said, "Well, you're resourceful. You'll figure it out." And I said, "Are you sure?" And they're like, "Yeah, we believe in you." And so
Nice.
they said, here's what we want, go do it. And they're like, everything is do it with no money and immediately with no timeline.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm like, okay. So I did the first thing that I thought of, which was drive to Home Depot and stand outside where the laborers are and use Google Translate to ask them if they could come. So I did exactly like I had nobody gave me money, like nobody told me a budget of anything. So I was just
Yeah.
like, this is where I get labor. So I drive outside this Home Depot and I literally go to where all the people are. It's outside this chicken restaurant. And I literally on the phone, I say, I need somebody to help me tear out carpet. And two guys get in my car. I can't speak to them at all. And we drive to this first house. And anyways, I put them in there and like we're trying to tear out the carpet in this house, and they were very good at doing the demo work.
Mm.
Right. The funny story is there was this rat that was like running around in like it was an old auction house, and the woman must have been dead for a while, and I'm not really sure exactly, but it was like everything, it was just full of furniture and full of like an old lady in Florida.
Yeah.
Like so like there were these rats that were running around the property, and there was one bag. Like at this point I was also helping out, like clear out the garbage. So I reach up to this cabinet and I pull down some shirts or whatever, and out jumps this rat on my head, like from the shirts up here. And these guys start laughing hysterically at me, like like I was freaked, it's like
Yeah.
I didn't normally do that. So that's literally how I started. And so after that, there's the stories of trying to find more laborers, etc. And just another funny story of the laborers. It's like I had heard about Craigslist, and they said, go on Craigslist to get some labor. So I put up a post on there and I call somebody and he answers and he says, could you pick me up at the 7-Eleven and drive me to the house? And the house was in a gate. So I said, sure. So I pick him up and he has this like clear backpack and whatnot. And when he gets in the car, he tells me, "Oh, I just got out of jail. Thank you so much for doing this for me, etc." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. You're
Like
like, yeah,
I was like,
22-year-old kid.
yeah, I was like, "What do I do?" I was
Yeah.
never been in this situation in my life, and I was just like, "What do I do?" And so long story short, I remember when we got there, I was having him tear down wallpaper. And at a certain point, I was just like, "Here's $100. Thank you for the 2 hours you were here, and we'll see you later." Because I didn't know what to do at all. So
Yeah.
that is literally how it started.
Wow.
And after like the issue with my brother and Andrew, his partner, is that they would see like inches of things getting done and go, "This is great, let's go get more." And so
Yeah.
that's sort of how this rumbled and exploded.
Okay.
And when that happens, you have to think differently. Like you can't doing these little things will never work. Like
Right.
you cannot be at five houses at once, etc.
Yeah.
So first we start with one, and then we had three in a semi close area, and then we had five, and then we had seven, and they started being spread out between Port St. Lucie and Palm Beach, and that's maybe about an hour and a half drive. But when you're doing these circuits, I mean, it's a long day. Like you could only do either the Port St. Lucie properties or the Palm Beach properties in one
Right.
day. And then it started getting further out because the
Mm.
prices started getting better more up north, and we were doing a lot of these flips. So then it was I don't even remember Palm Bay, and then we went to the other side of Florida, Cape Coral, and it was just like, what the heck? And
Yeah.
so I don't want to ramble on too long, but a big turning point was when we had properties in Port St. Lucie on this side of Florida and Cape Coral on this side of Florida. And
Yeah.
at this point, I hired actually I put out an ad for an assistant, and the idea was to have a driver who could drive the car so that I could be on the computer dealing with all the admin work while I go property to property.
Okay.
And so um, at that point,
Mm.
um, I was like, how do we do this? And so this is actually where I found a consultant, a construction management consultant, and I think it was $30,000 that it cost. And he was like, here's a 4 month plan, etc. Like, here's what you do. And he met with me, and he really helped me,
Yeah.
actually. Like
I can
he
imagine.
really did help me. The arrangement was sort of strange, like how sort of the consultations went. Um, but the information really changed the whole business. Like he got with me and he's like, dude, you need to hire project managers, and it can't be a driver. Um, like you need to get somebody who actually knows what they're doing, etc. And I'll give a shout out. I don't know if I'll ever see this, but his name is David Wasserman. Not related to me, a
Oh
random
yeah.
dude. He's actually the person I hired as a driver. And I remember when I was hiring him, I was like, listen, right now it's just driving, but soon we're gonna be, I was like, soon we're gonna be doing 100 homes at once, etc. Like, and he was like, I'm sold, like let's do this. And so he became a really good project manager. He still works there today.
Nice.
And he's learned a ton. But anyway, so I got these two project managers, one for Palm Bay and Port St. Lucie, and one for Cape Coral. And we paid them a lot, like maybe 70,000 base with bonuses for jobs that were done early, plus travel, like how do you call it, car compensation. So it came out to like 110, $115,000 a year or so
Wow.
for what they were doing. And very fastly, I mean, this was my fault because I didn't know anything, but I was getting into fights with them because they're driving all day from property to property, like working very hard, but all they're doing is essentially just checking in and taking pictures of things, and they would never get enough time to actually do any of the management. And
Mm.
so I don't want to ramble too long, but I do want to say this one point when everything changed. And this is when we had these project managers just being paid a lot of money to be the essentially eyes, and their brains were, mush by the time they got home. And they would do long days. Like we're talking, they were out at 7 a.m. and they're home at 6 p.m. Like
Yeah.
it was ridiculous what we had them do. And it was like I didn't know any better. So that's where it's like, that is my fault for those not upfront expectations and having no idea, etc. But after a period of time, it's like, this is never going to work. What they're doing is never going to work. This sort of arrangement we're trying to do is never going to work. There has to be a change. And this is when I realized all the lenders that we were working with, they always gave draws with virtual inspections. And
Mm.
that's when I said, if it's good enough for the money, it better be good enough for us. And it's like, we're not even the money. And the money is the most important thing here. That's why everybody's doing it. So it's like, if the money can handle virtual inspections, we better figure out how to handle virtual inspections. And
Yeah.
so that's when we separated from those project managers, and we hired one project manager who sat in the office 9 to 5. And it was, you're sitting at and hiring for this was sort of hard in the beginning, because it was like you needed a project manager who would be open to that. And
Mm.
if you get one of these older guys who was used to doing this for a construction company, they're like, what the hell are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
that's bull crap, and they have this like attitude. Like there's a special character that would do it. And so we found a very good manager. His name is Numan. And he came with us. He liked the vision. He's like, let's do this thing. and he sat in the office, and we started hiring runners, and we hired to do like inspections on the subcontractors, and every day we'd have like pictures being put on Builder Trend, and like essentially just like starting to run it like an actual company instead of like I'm a house flipper. And
Yeah.
that's when a lot of things changed. So that was a long
No, that's
ramble,
good. Yeah.
Nathaniel. But if you want to, ask any questions, like the main point, and this goes back to Sub Two being a good group of people and a place where I would like to literally give and not feel like people are thinking that it's either I'm stingy with the information or I'm trying to get something. It's like I just want to give as much as I can and be able to provide value in the marketplace and somehow down the line get paid for it. Like I'm not worried about that. So if people have questions on how to do this, like I'll tell you how we hired the project managers, how we paid them. I'll tell you how we did our management, how we did our scopes, how we did our walkthroughs, estimations. Like we didn't go to the properties for anything. We never went
Yeah.
once.
Yeah,
And
let's I want to pause you there because there's a lot to unpack here. One thing that you did amazingly well at the start is just to go, I don't know what the heck to do. I'm gonna go drive over to Home Depot. You did what you like, this is the only action I can think of. And instead of going, well, what other actions are there? Or is this the best action? Are there better ways? You just went and did it. And you're going to learn by doing. And sometimes you're going to make a bunch of mistakes, but that's how we grow and that's how we get better. Um, and then, and then you got to a point where you're like, I need to bring somebody else on. I don't know what that looks like, but again, you just took action and said, even if this person just drove the car from place to place and it freed me up to be able to work while I'm doing that, it's amazing. And it's not where you want to be yet, but you're taking steps to get there. And then you were able to finally realize, like, hey, these people are just driving back. They're essentially just doing what I was doing. And now I've multiplied myself by two, which is okay, but they're going to get burnt out. This isn't scalable. This isn't something that we can sustain for a long period of time. Now you're going to take a step back and go, what do we do better? How do we do it better? So I like patting on ourselves on the back. So, um,
Nathaniel, there, as I was talking about the team, it's funny. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but in the Zoom Vault, there's this course or whatever. It's called Zero to Hero. Have you
mhm,
ever watched that?
yep.
So I was watching this last night, and I forget, not Bob, maybe his name's Bobby. I forget his name, not oh, whatever. One of the main guy who's
Oh,
doing
Matt.
it.
Yeah,
M-
Matt.
Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Matt.
Yeah.
So I saw him do these huddles with the VAs from Start Virtual that they were doing,
Yep.
and I was like, I like this guy gets it. And one of the things that I didn't mention in our team that we had is that when I first hired David Wasserman, the first driver who turned into a very awesome project manager, I also hired a lady named Krisha, and she was a virtual assistant in the Philippines, and she
Okay.
started managing. Like we would take pictures of receipts, and she'd insert it into Builder Trend, and then she would do all the ordering from Home Depot and deal with Amazon and all like the admin sort of side. Um, and so we also hired project managers in the Philippines,
Okay.
and that's where it's like when and I wanted to explain that they were great and great people. The thing that I was so impressed with Matt about because I knew he got it is because no like I was very team focused, like very driven. And I told you when I hired David, it's like, we're doing two houses right now, but I'm pitching him. It's like, we're going to be like, I remember drawing on this whiteboard and he's like, he came over to my apartment and it's just like, yo, yeah, we didn't even have an office then. It's like, come to my apartment and it's like, here's this whiteboard. And it's like, right now we're doing one house, but we're going to be doing 100 houses at a time and XYZ, and it was like, he was really pumped and it's like, he had no experience either, but it was like, he is in line with the vision. And the same thing happened with the virtual assistants we would hire, where it's like you treat them so well and you recognize like they could do as much as you essentially like train them to do.
Yeah.
And if you're going to support them to do great things, they can accomplish very great things. They
Yeah.
might not be the person who's going to pave the way, but they could do a lot if you treat them very well.
Yeah.
And so that
That's
was
what my
something that
team did.
I'd like to give them a shout out, and I'd
Yeah.
also like to explain to people who are new and I don't know, but if you want to see what this looks like, go to the Zero to Hero, and in like I took a screenshot of it actually. It was like I could send you it later, but I think it's week 2, day 8, something like this, where I just like I was just watching it, and they Matt was with the team, and it was just like this is how you get a lot done, and it's
Yeah.
very simple, but it's like so anyways, I'll plug that there.
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's once he's made the hires and he's gotten kind of his systems up and running, and I'm sure he still does this with his team, but they do a daily huddle and it's like 10 minutes. What are you grateful for? What are the things that you're working on? And then, this is the vision and this is why we're doing what we're doing kind of stuff. And it's keeping the focus and the attention on the one thing, the goal at hand and the task at hand, and it's creating a culture inside of your business. And when you're hiring a virtual assistant, which we had in the past as well, um, you're they're your employees essentially. Even if they're employed by another company who you're hiring, you're still, they're still your employees. You're still their employer, and so they need to be bought in. Well, they don't need to be. They just won't be successful. But when they buy into what you're doing, like this David guy has, they're going to go all out for you. They're going to run through a wall because they see the vision and they believe in the vision. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, wow, there's so much to go through here. So at this point now, you have not present day, but present of your story that you were telling. You have hired a virtual project manager.
So here, the we had so basically like this. I think we had maybe 14 homes,
Okay.
and we had maybe 7 in Port St. Lucie, Palm Bay. Those are sort of like towns, maybe an hour apart from each other on this side of Florida, or
Yeah.
the reverse if the screen, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we had another 7 on this side of Cape Coral. And so that's when we had 2 in-person project managers, and then I had David Wasserman. He was in the like at this point we got an office, and he was in the office with me, and he was sort of I had him managing those 2 managers.
Okay.
And so what had happened then was like, this is where we made the pivot. And it's like, no, right now there's a lot of redundancy happening, and we don't like the ground project managers are not working. So this is where we took a step back, and it was basically like, David, you stay here. You're going to be a project manager, and we're going to go get another person in the office, like another project manager to stay in the office and help. And at this point, we had Krisha, who did our admin work, like in the Philippines. We had David, we had me, and we had um, and then we hired Numan, who was the project manager that came in the office.
Okay.
When we got Numan, we also hired 2 assistants, one for David and one for Numan specifically. And so this is where things sort of get complicated when you don't have your own way to drive. You always have to figure something else to do, like some way other to get it. So it's like if you need if we were going to have an inspection or something, and we needed a fire extinguisher like to be put in. So it's like we would need somebody to go to Home Depot, pick it up and drop it off there, and it couldn't be us. So it's like, how do you find somebody to do that when you need it? So it's like we would have lists, and they would need a cold call. I mean, it wasn't a cold call because they had been like they had applied to work with us, but they would have to go through the list and find a runner in that area who could work today for the price and do the thing at our time.
Yeah.
And this is more on the project management side as well, but it's like we never once had a contractor estimate, like bid a job. Never once. Like we always made the price, and we backwards bid everything. So all of our costs, like all of our scopes, we had set pricing, and our subcontractors had to agree to our timeline, our price, our timeline, price, and terms, even in terms of paying out. So it's like we would never front anything. Like we would have them do a draw. When they submitted for the draw, we would submit from the draw from the lender, get the money to pay them. and they would be paid on net 5, net 10, or whatever it was. And
Yeah.
so it's like I think what a lot of people are afraid of, it's funny because like outside of that environment, this is where I get screwed a lot, where it's like I don't actually think that you could control the um the job or control the gig. But you have to remember what we provided value in this marketplace was the management for these construction, like for these crews. Because if you look at where like, one of the things I would always, go back and forth with my brother is like, what value do I provide to the marketplace? And I was always like very I wanted to make sure that we were providing value and like we weren't just, I don't know, subsuming something, like
Yeah.
taking it from somebody else, but actually providing something. And so what we realize is like, you could find a golden goose subcontractor or contractor, call them whatever you want, somebody that probably works on the job and has a friend or two come and help him. And, when we would do houses, I mean, oftentimes there would be one heavy hitter, like one guy who would do basically the whole house, like flooring, paint, finishes, lights, doors, like all that stuff. And he would probably have a helper, and that would do most of the house, unless there was a specialty trade. So it's like those guys, you could probably find them, but they'll never be able to handle more than one project at once. And so
Right.
what you provide is the man, like you are the manager. And when you're doing a small flipping operation, again, you are the manager. So what you're doing is you have to control their cash flow. If you don't, I saw it too many times, they will die. Die meaning like they will suffocate from the cash flow issues because you didn't control it for them. If you
Yeah.
don't control their materials, if you don't control their like even just a roster of labor, things won't be able to float. And so that's where it's like you have to have the like you have to come in being like, I am the one controlling this scenario, and I'm like, that's why I hire you. Like I am the manager to help you finish it. And it's like we need to work together.
Yeah.
And I think having like, and this goes back to the VAs as well. It's like you have to have a good relationship with your crews. Like treat them well, give them space. Trust but verify. I hear that a lot in the community. But it's like, have these upfront contracts with them. Know they should know exactly, how the money is going to work, how the
Oh yeah.
timeline is going to work, how everything is going to work, because that's what keeps the jobs on a steady pace. And that was very important for really doing this, especially like with the timelines and just it was a lot of headache.
Yeah.
But to keep that all under management, it's like you had to be the manager.
Right. So you said something that I have not really heard before, which is hi, that you were able to set the price and the timeline. How did you go about that? Is this something that you started out? Yeah, let's just say, how did you go about that?
So this okay. I don't know how to this might sound like a fairy tale, but when I first got basically when we had about 5 homes and it was still me alone, I got in a contractor off Craigslist named Brandon. And this guy had 2 homes and he was, driving back and forth and putting these other laborers from Craigslist on the jobs and trying to manage these 2 things. And, a lot of unfortunate events happened, like all the paint that he had picked up spilled out of the truck. And then that caused a financial issue. And then, XYZ, like there were a lot of like just unfortunate circumstances that occurred that just killed the job for him. And so after that, I went back on Craigslist because this is where I started, people are really hanging on Craigslist over here. So I went on Craigslist and I found somebody looking for a tile laborer, like somebody who could lay tile, and I needed tile. So I gave him a call. Like he was the one making the post to find labor, but I was like, okay, maybe he could do this job. So I call him and I get in touch with this guy named Donnie. No idea what his last name is. Never knew what his last name is.
Yeah.
Um, and he comes to the job and he's this really like he is from one of the islands. I don't even remember which island he's from, but that like came to Florida, and old, very skinny guy. Like he looks like frail. Like he was probably like 70 and he very skinny. He would wear these white overalls. I wonder if I have a picture of him. And he would sit with me for hours and he would tell me how this works. And he used to build McDonald's in the area for, I mean, I have no idea if any of this is true, but he would
Yeah.
sit down with me and like like this is like a story out of Rich Dad Poor Dad or something. It's like he would sit down with me, tell me how he would build all these McDonald's is, tell me how he does all this, like teach me how to be a contractor. He would show me how much things are, how to bid them, how to go about and like pay people, and like he spent a lot of time with me. Like I would meet him at Starbucks, and it's like for hours. And I gave him maybe like at a certain point he had maybe 5 or 6 jobs from us, and it got really bad. Like he actually didn't do any work. Like there was never any work any done at all, and kept being procrastinated.
Gosh.
And at a certain point, I said, he told us he ordered kitchen cabinets for us. Like he had a supplier, and we said, me and my brother and Andrew were basically like, listen, if he has kitchen cabinets here, we'll continue. But if there's no kitchen cabinets, we're just gonna walk. And that was very hard. And like that, the stress of this actually put me in the hospital. Like I didn't like at this point, I didn't know how to do anything. He was like the only thing keeping the thing alive. Like I had him on every job we had. And
Yeah.
it was like, if this fails and now we're out money and we're out time, I was just like, what do you even do? Like, I
Yeah.
was like, I'm dead, you know? And so, either way, cabinets weren't there. The cabinet, like they were just not there. And so we went through and we fired him. And that's when we're like, okay, time to try another way to get labor. And that's when we started getting more crews and realizing like, you can't do the two houses with one person.
Yeah. I think that's definitely an issue that we might come upon when we start to do more than one at a time, is that we have one guy that one contractor that we really like and we trust, and he's great at what he does, but then, yeah, he's going to be spread too thin. And
Yeah.
we don't want to put somebody in a position where they're going to feel like they need to lie to us or, tell us that things are going when they're not going and things like that, because that's not fun for anybody. But so
And
how do you, oh, go ahead.
I, and so part of the hardest part, Nathaniel, is that when you're starting, if you're doing one flip, or let's say, and you buy two flips, you don't have the infrastructure yet. And
Right.
so this is where it's like, you basically become a full-time project manager, or like, and there's very few companies that were structured to work for investors. Like not a lot of companies wanted to do high volume, low margin like work. Like you just
Right.
don't have a lot of them. There are a few actually. I mean, and this is a plug. If anybody wants construction in Florida, go to Center Shield Construction. But that besides the point, like and by the way, they'll really only work. They only want to do jobs where you're getting like 3 to 5 jobs from them a month. So that's sort of like the investor they're looking for.
Okay.
But the it's very hard to find. Either you're going to find like a retail general contractor that will do it and basically partner with you on the flip to run it,
Right.
or you're finding the guys that are like off Craigslist, and now you're the full-time project manager.
Yeah.
um
The
so that was
subcontract.
the interjection there.
Yeah.
But that's where it's like you sort of have to hustle in the beginning until I mean, here's a trick. And I actually told Michelle Ellis. I don't know if you know Michelle. She's also a good girl.
Okay.
She's in Zero Down. I mean, she's a woman, but she's in Zero Down. And I met with her. We were actually talking about, she has a painting company, and I was telling her, like, listen, if you would just want to get this started, like, get number one, get like a part-time sales guy that will, just deal with going to do the estimates, and number like a college kid or something. And then number two, get a virtual assistant and have them basically run the whole show. And so for you, right, if you're trying to get to two houses, and this is for anybody watching it, it's like this is where, if you have just enough, I mean, you probably have to do it a few times and work with them and fail with the assistant. You don't have to fire them as long as they're trying, but work with them. You could probably come up with a system where they're basically handling 80% of the flip, like managing. And
Yeah.
you're basically there to accept or deny as if you were a customer.
Right.
And so just having that one little layer of extra help would probably, I mean, it wouldn't cost so much. I mean, you could go and I don't know how many VAs there are that are trained in construction management. There are a lot of like architects and sort of some project managers that come from the Philippines. Like they do construction management there. I know when we were interviewing them. Um, but there's not so many companies, like they're not bouncing from American company to American company. It's not so popular.
Right.
Um, but you could find somebody that at least knows a little bit about the background and could learn.
Yeah, man, I have so many questions to keep asking you. I don't have, we don't have a whole lot more time. Um, how did you, what were you looking for in a virtual assistant? Um, somebody from the Philippines or even non-virtual, the ones that you have in your office. What kind of traits were you looking for to know that these were going to be a good fit for you and that they were somebody that you could move forward with and grow together?
Yeah. So the project managers, it was basically like, and this came like when we would have these points of like, busting, or it's like, this is not working. It's like, and this is like where I think, so what value do I provide? It's like, so what position do they fill? Like, what are we looking for? Are we looking for eyes? Are we looking for hands? Are we looking for a brain? If it's the brain, what are they responsible for? And so it's like, if we're going to talk the project manager, what does the project manager do? He manages the project. And this is like, he is the brain behind it. It's like, how do I get the scope of work? It's like, if you're having a customer, they'll give you, here's what we want done to the property. So now we take this, some bullet points and we go, so this is actually what has to be done on the time. That it's like the who, what, where, how, and when. And it's like all of those things, they basically make, we would call it like, what would we call it? I don't know, like a scope of work, like a portfolio or like a binder. Here's like a packet of information. It would be like, here's the scope of work, line for line, dot for dot. Here's how it comes out in purchase orders. Here's how it comes out on the Gantt chart and on the schedule. And here's the roster of which type of crew is going to fit on this. And then once they have this packet of how much each type of crew is going to get paid, when, how much, and for what, and all the list of materials. And it's like they would never shop at Home Depot, Amazon, anything. They were only like the project managers were only allowed to shop on an Excel sheet. And this Excel sheet had all of our approved materials. So it's like anything you want, you buy it here and you put the price in the purchase order or on the estimate or whatever. And it's like then Krisha, the assistant, would come through and do all the ordering and manage all the shipping and check making sure that everybody has it and it's on the schedules and XYZ. So the project manager, their thing was to make the actual like a consultant would. Like, here is your plan. Here's everything you need to do. And
Yeah.
so I didn't really care that they managed the job, so to speak. Like, I cared that they were the one to approve everything. But at that point, the assistant project manager could do the day-to-day of like the check-ins, calling the subcontractors, making things have gotten there. If the subcontractor needs anything from whatever, that they're talking with them, coming up with any problems. If they can't solve it, they'll push it to the actual project manager. But if you think about it this way, then the project managers could do new scopes of works. They could do dealing with the fires. And of course, when you like,
Yeah.
at the end, right is when I was still like, I'm actually not involved in the company like at all anymore. I just sell for them. And I mean, I work with my brother still like doing things, but I actually left to do the lead generation. Like at a
Right.
certain point, it's like, this is stressful. Like I want to go do something that I don't have like full blown stress living my life. It didn't really work, but and I'm young, so I thought you could just path is always greener. But
Yeah.
anyway, so it's like here it's like the assistant project managers, it's like they could take the project, day to day, check in with the contractors, deal with the runners, deal with getting the contractors, etc. And the project manager would deal with the fires and deal with onboarding new projects and basically the high level tasks. And then you go like, now, I mean, we're doing 18, 20 homes at once. And then it's like, to go at a certain point, it's like our thing was we could hop in a new, like, give us 2 weeks. Like, if we really want to start on time, give us 2 weeks to advertise in a new area and we could go to a new city, new state, whatever it was, have a roster of subcontractors, different trades, etc. The only issue there is, are you licensed or not? And in Florida, we ended up getting a roofing and general contractor's license to deal with this. But
Okay.
like most people, like if you're going to be flipping for yourself, you probably don't need that. But at a certain point, if you're held up because of the permits, because your person who you're paying to pull the permit isn't doing it and you're getting screwed, at a certain point we said, let's just get qualified.
Yeah.
Like, let's be able to do the permitting so we don't have to deal with the people who we don't allow to manage the project to manage this part of the project.
Yeah. So you have full control and you're not
And it's
relying on
not, it
somebody
wasn't,
else's
it
time.
wasn't like being full control. It was more of like, if our value proposition to the market is management, and that is like what we're doing, we have
Yeah.
to own that.
Yeah.
And it's like, we have to make sure that our, customers and the investors and whatever it is are getting their projects with the same quality at the same, like on time, on budget.
Yeah.
And that was like, we can't do that if, things are getting held up.
Well, like I said, we're short on time here,
But
Noah. I
just
appreciate
just before you
everything.
leave,
Oh yeah,
like
I was gonna
I don't I know this is, and I feel like I talked a lot, but Nathaniel, I want you, if you could ask something very practical that you want to get to 2 homes or 3 homes or 5 homes, so that I could try and like give anybody listening to this, like, here is what an action item is that you could go do and really just like give yourself this weight off your shoulders, maybe systematize something. I don't know, but
now you're putting me on the spot. Because I've already felt like the getting that I've gotten enough value from you to take one next step and then get me to the next question. So now the issue that I have is taking some of the things that you said and going and putting them into action. And then am I hearing music?
yeah, so
Okay.
this is where the baby comes
Yeah,
and
yeah, no
punches
problem. I
something.
just
Sorry
wanted to
about
make sure I wasn't having like a seizure or something.
that.
Oh, I now for me, I gotta go find the next issue before I can bring you another question. Because you've answered a couple of the questions and taking some of the stuff off of my plate and, taking the backpack off, is definitely one step. It seems like I need to be a little bit more involved in in managing the materials and how they're getting to the project and taking that off of my contractors. So I need to take a backpack off, but I also need to take a backpack off of him so he can just focus on the actual doing the work things. Because what we've done is we did a couple where we were like really, really, really involved. And then the last two, we're in the middle of one right now as well, where it's a little bit more, we empowered him to kind of just go, hey, you know what we do, you know what we're looking for, go do it. He seems to like it, but it also seems to have slowed us down 10%. Um, because instead of us running the Home Depot Lowe's trips and then having things delivered or having him just be able to come and swing by and pick things up, now he's spending an hour at Lowe's or Home Depot walking around and making orders and things like that.
A life
Whereas,
hack.
yeah,
Okay, I actually I will be happy if everybody knows this, and this is something I'm very like, when you go to flip a house, especially when you're doing this as a business and not as like a hobby, which I'm pretty sure most people in sub two are not doing this as a hobby,
right, yeah,
the houses just make them all look the same. Like like you don't have to go like an interior designer, have
right,
one spreadsheet that has all of your fixtures, all of your vanities, all of your flooring, everything there. Just order the same thing every time and do everybody a favor, just have it ordered to the property. Floor and Decor is great. Home Depot is great. These places are great. And they'll like, they will ship it to you very cheap.
yeah,
And it's like the $200 that you would have paid your contractor to pay to go get it, plus his time. Now you paid Floor and Decor $200 and they delivered it to the
yeah,
project for you.
yeah. I like that. See, some of it was just me going, I didn't have a question. I just had some stuff to say, and then you were able to answer a question that didn't exist a second ago. And that's
Yeah.
something that we're doing. We are doing that already. We pivoted uh 5 months ago from our gray paint to a little bit more tannish of a paint, and now we're just gonna like this is the paint that we use until further notice. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I appreciate you, man. If If anybody had any questions, wanted to pick your brain, maybe had a project to bring you or something like that. I know you said you don't have an Instagram at the moment. What's the best way to reach out to you and get a hold of you?
So two, Facebook,
Okay.
just Noah Wasserman.
Yep.
Number two would be my phone number,
Okay.
847-648-6293. And we could put that in the description or whatever. Um, and if they want to just book a time on my calendar, like you go to noahwasserman.io/let's dash meet. We could put that in the description
Oh
also.
yeah. Yeah, I'll have you send that to me after the thing. I think I
And
have it already, but just to make sure I got the right link, I will put I'll link your Facebook. I'll put a phone number in there, since you're comfortable with that, and I'll put that website as well so they
and
can book it
and
on their calendar.
the last thing I want to say is that guys, feel free to come and ask me questions without having any want to buy construction because that's not what I care. Like I said, I'm not even an owner in the company anymore. So it's like I will answer your questions. I just want to do it to teach you guys and to meet people because
Yeah.
ultimately having friends is probably the most valuable and good thing that you could do for yourself anyways.
Yeah.
So,
And
um,
this is going to be a keep your eye out for the future because we didn't even start to touch on the outreach that you're doing. And I am very curious about that. It's not something that necessarily we're looking to do, but I know that a lot of people out there are doing the text blasting and the email blasting that, at not at the scale that you're doing. So I definitely want to have you on in the future to talk about that and see what we can learn and go through together. Any parting, newbie tips maybe that you haven't touched on that you can think of?
yeah. This is something that I learned. I want to give a shout out. His name is Joseph Levitt. You guys could look him up. So we are actually the reason I said Chicago is a long story. We were living in Israel. We moved there in June, and the war broke out in October. And right around when the war broke out, we came to Chicago. And so in Israel, I met this man named Yosef Levitt, and he taught me a lot about the outreach. He had a company called Mad Mimi, which is an email marketing company, which he sold to GoDaddy for maybe 45 or $50 million. And so he was like this dude who knew like mass outreach, etc. And one thing that I literally got an apartment right next to his building because I said I want to just be next to this guy.
Yeah.
And so part of it was any single thing that he did in life, like he had fun doing it and was like happy through the process.
Mhm.
And this actually, I was watching a video of Pace the other day from years ago, and I saw it's like he got a text. Somebody said he was talking bad about Cody on the live or something, and Cody sent him a message being like, "What the heck? Like, what are you talking bad about me?" And it was a complete like misunderstanding. Like it was just some dude in the audience that was making a ruckus. And it's like when you get a text message like that, or if I were to get a text message like that, I would probably freeze and be like, the world is falling. But the people who know how to look at life and see that everything is good, and the ones who get very far say, like, yo, this is just another thing that I could get through, and it's just another adventure that I'm trying to solve. And so if you could do that, you will get so far.
Yeah.
And that I'm saying that for myself as well. But like, Joseph Levitt had showed that to me tremendously. Like I've never seen anybody so happy and living a beautiful life than when I met him. And there's resemblance of pace for the community here doing that. But it's like those figures and being able to just replicate that in small ways will push a person so far.
I love that, man. I think finding the joy and the fun in all the little nitty-gritty kind of things that we do is what allows us to continue doing things. If you're hating what you're doing, you're not going to stick with it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And
And
it's like it's not worth it to just grind, grind, grind in the hopes that, oh, I'll have fun on the weekend. Like,
no, it's
okay,
in the
what?
journey.
Yeah, the process, like what is it? The journey is better than the destination or something along those lines. I'm sure I butchered that, but like those little like kind of woo woo, like corny kind of things, like man, they're there for a reason. It's because they're true. you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, man. Like I said, I'd love to have you on to talk some more. This is one of the longer ones I've done so far. So, uh, you do a great job of just like spilling knowledge, and you don't have a you definitely have a go-giver attitude and attitude of gratitude. Ooh, that's a little rhymey one. I like that. Oh, it's been a pleasure, man.
Wow.
Until next time.
Yeah, Nathaniel, it was awesome.
Thank you,
And,
brother.
really thank you for the platform for this. And yeah, all the blessings.
You as well.